woke.
The Gen Zs.
Gen Zs. And she died.
Oh.
And I was reading the story. I felt if I was there, I would have just taken cane and flogged the dead body too. You know, that the husband said she shouldn't go to hospital. The story was one kind. She shouldn't go to hospital. They were taking the delivery maybe at home or something. And this girl gave up and eventually the baby died.
Wow.
See, it's not about being woke. We have a lot of woke girls who are not mentally empowered. I was to sign, when it was time to sign for my, I told the girl, bring the thing, let me sign. She was like, okay. I was to do a procedure, tubal litigation, and she said, have you discussed with your husband? I said, discuss. I said, can I have the form? It's my, I'm not saying don't discuss things with you, discuss. But when it comes down to it, just know that it's your life.
Let's begin our conversation taking a quote from Poppy Montgomery, an Australian-American actress. She once said, "There is nothing that anyone can say to prepare you for childbirth. Each woman's experience is so different. You never know how it will be for you." I agree with this one. Our second quote is from Mariah Morgan, an educator who helped popularize a childbirth preparation technique known as hypnobirthing, which has been used by British royals such as Kate Middleton and Meghan Markle, and also actress Jessica Alba, and hundreds of thousands of other women to achieve a calmer, gentler birth experience. She once said, "My dream is that every woman, everywhere, will know the job of a truly safe, comfortable, and satisfying birthing for herself and her baby." I like this one. Our last quote is from Cheryl Fieldman, who is a writer, a teacher, and not-for-profit communications manager. She once said, "There is power that comes to women when they give birth. They don't ask for it. It simply invades them, accumulates like clouds on the horizon, and passes through, carrying the child with it." Aww, don't you love this one? Let's see how all of this goes relate to what we'll be discussing this morning. Very warm greetings and welcome to The Conversation. You're reaching you from Kaftan's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. Of course, I am Annabel Orji. Now, you recall that heart-wrenching story or experience from Yemi Omoshola in December 2001. A woman from Lagos State, that's the southwestern part of Nigeria, who needed blood desperately. Her doctors attempt to induce delivery of her overdue baby had caused excessive bleeding. Unfortunately, the hospital had no blood bank. While her husband searched for blood here, there, and everywhere, Mrs. Omoshola lost consciousness and she died eventually. That's the tragedy a lot of women have gone through during labor and childbirth, especially in Nigeria. Now, talking about the abuse of pregnant women by healthcare provider, that is just another kettle of fish entirely. For some women, there have been reported cases where they experience or witness physical abuse by their hospital attendants. This includes slapping, physical restraints to a delivery bed, detainment in the hospital, and verbal abuse, such as shouting and threatening women with physical abuse. Women sometimes overcome tremendous barriers to reach a hospital only to give birth on the floor, unattended by a provider. The trauma caused by most women when they're about to birth their baby is second to none. Seriously, if you ask some women, what you will hear will completely shock you. So, what is your child delivery experience in Nigeria like? You care to share some of your story? Feel absolutely free to do so via any of our social media portal now showing on your screen, as we're ready to hear your story, and we are just one click away. Now, that said, our guest on the show today is the very beautiful Irene Owa. She is the Executive Director, Crestville Academy. She is a public speaker. She is a girl, child, and woman advocate. She's an author, and she is a gender equality expert. She will be sharing her 9-month journey and experience in the labor room after over 10 years of birthing her supposedly last born. You want to hear the story, I'm sure. So sit back and relax. This will educate you. Most definitely. This edition of The Conversation is for everybody. Even the men should watch this one. We're back in a moment. Don't move a muscle. Welcome back. If you just joined us, this is The Conversation. We are reaching you from Kaftan's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. If you just joined us, you're right on time for the interview. Our guest on the show today is the beautiful Irene Owa. She is a gender equality advocate or expert. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good day.
Great to have you.
Thank you.
All right, now let's start by getting your thought. Now, we know that pregnancy should be a cause for celebration and excitement for the birth of a new life and then a hopeful future. But for women in Nigeria, it looks like it's like a different kettle of fish, especially when with regards to going to the hospital to get their antenatal, and then fast forward to when their EDDs, that's the expected day of delivery, and then there's so much fear around it. Or it sounds like more like it's nightmarish for some women. Though. So what exactly is the reason for this? Is it because of is it due to the nostalgia that is attached with pregnancy, or is it the problem with the healthcare delivery that they get?
I must tell you the truth. Of course, you know, I just had a baby.
We were definitely going to hear a story.
Yes. But you see, the truth is, when you have seen that maybe double line, or you went to the hospital check and you're pregnant, and it's a cause for celebration. But for the woman, as the pregnancy journey progresses, you're faced with a lot of battles. Now, some of those battles are not even from internal, your health. It's external. Accessibility to healthcare. And then you begin to hear the news. This woman went to give birth, she died. The other one was being operated upon, she died. Or, the baby died. And so on. And you begin to ask yourself, it could be you. Of course, you're going through that. Or even if you have had a baby, you're asking yourself, I could have died in that room. I could have died in that theater. So it's a mixed feeling for every woman who or almost every woman who gets pregnant and is expected to deliver in Nigeria. Mind you, World Health gave out a statistics that Nigeria produces 34% of the global maternal mortality. So imagine in the whole world, Nigeria has the highest mortality rate in the world. Now, again, you're also looking at the fact that even when the woman survives, sometimes the chances for the child to survive. So, and then,
bleak. As
we go on this conversation, we're going to be unpacking it, because government has created healthcare in stages. Now you have the primary healthcare, the secondary healthcare, and the tertiary healthcare. And the failure of the primary healthcare, I want to believe, is one of the reasons why we are contributing the highest in global mortality, maternal mortality. Because when a woman in that rural area, for instance, cannot go to the primary healthcare there to register for antenatal and get the services, then she begins to look for secondary healthcare. She needs to leave that community. One, you're talking of poverty. Does she have the transport to go to that hospital continuously? Because antenatal is something you do till you deliver. Now, does she have, even if she has the transport fare, does she have the money to register there? And then in cases of emergency, how accessible is it for her to leave her community and get to the secondary or the tertiary healthcare?
And we've then seen stories where some people, they are even like driven in wheelbarrows, bikes, when it's time for them to deliver their children.
Annabel, the truth is, I keep telling myself that I don't know why I went through what I went through this, whether it's for a particular kind of advocacy for women. Because if you see, I went to a tertiary hospital.
Okay.
And I even registered for the VIP treatments. That's because I can afford it. But even with the VIP, I almost died. And it's still surreal to me. I'm still nostalgic about it. I haven't even come out of it.
I can imagine.
Now, and I sit back and I'm looking at myself who could afford a certain level of health care vis-a-vis the woman in some remote area in Nigeria who can't afford such. And I'm like, so what mercy is this woman relying on, if not for God, which we have always taken all our problems to, even the ones we can solve, the ones that government can solve for us, because we do not have them, we take everything. You know, so you say women in wheelbarrow. Are you talking of the woman who already, the baby, they discovered at the point of delivery in some place that the baby was breached? And then they are carrying her with the breached baby, with blood, maybe the water had come. It's always horror. So when a woman goes through that journey and comes out alive, and the baby is alive, it's a cause for celebration. Because you have stood a chance of, you were between life and death. Albeit some people have paid the supreme price just to bring forth a life.
All right, now talking about a childbirth in Nigeria, for some people will tell you there's different strokes for different pregnant women. So what exactly is it like for, what was it like for you? Was it like a bumpy ride, or was it walk in the park, a roller coaster of events? Tell us your experience.
Okay, I was done with childbearing because my supposedly last child is supposed to be 10 in August. And all of a sudden last year I discovered I was pregnant, my 4th child. Now I had gone through 3 previous years. Of course, you don't need any soothsayer to tell you that this 4th one will be a CS again.
We're going to talk about that CS part, because a lot of women will tell you that God forbid CS care. Okay, you know? Go ahead, please.
So, and of course, my age 10 years ago and today isn't the same. Add a decade to your age. Now, there are lots of factors, you know, age is one of them, you know. So, I had preeclampsia, which is pregnancy-induced hypertension. I had some high level of GDM, that's called gestational diabetes, you know. And at some point, I had 3+ in my urine, in my protein in my urine, and they feared.
What they call ketone.
I don't even know the medical, because I had so many medical terms, I was tired, you know. And I had to go for kidney test, you know. At some point, they were fearing my kidney had problem. And even at the point I was wrongly diagnosed, one of the tests brought out a result that showed that I had some issues with my kidney, which was actually wrong. They had to go and run it again. Thank God for that particular doctor who noticed it and said, no, this is deranged. Go back and run it. And they ran it again.
That's another different
problem
thing entirely.
You know, so I had all of this. And by the time I got into the theater, I was being managed for preeclampsia actually. And I got into the theater, and I had issues with the hospital. At some point, they threw my file away. You know, 48 hours to my get into the theater, they couldn't even find my file. You know, and one of the things I have to tell women, but if a woman doesn't take anything out of this conversation, they should take the fact that they are responsible for their health. Nobody is responsible for your health. You are. Even if you have paid, regardless of the kind of hospital you've gone to, regardless of the money you have paid, regardless of the reputation of the hospital, you are responsible for your health. Now, I was to be taken into the theater 48 hours, 24 hours into, I did not have a record. In a tertiary hospital where I paid for a VIP treatment. Now, do you know what saved me, Annabel? My husband, I used to take, my husband tells me, anytime you do a scan, anytime you get results from the lab, take a picture of it, send it to me on WhatsApp.
Okay.
Do you know my husband was using the WhatsApp records to reconcile records with them by 2 a.m. so that I'll be able to go into the theater by 10 a.m. Because at that point, my blood pressure was, they were managing it so that it doesn't get too bad. So he was there. He will bring out, my wife did this test on so and so day. Check your computer. This was 2 a.m.
Thank God for your husband that was even there with you.
Thank God. But whoever, it could have been people have different people who are their primary caregivers who helps them, you know. So you are responsible. I could imagine if my husband didn't have that, I didn't take those pictures. Now, maybe it would have taken one day for him to, because of course this is a big hospital where they run tests in thousands every day. So that was how they were able to get certain records to put into my file to go into the theater. And while I was in the theater, I had postmortem hemorrhage, which is, you know, bleeding, excessive bleeding. I bled and I had to be transfused 3 pints of blood. Now, again, it's a miracle. My baby came out, she was weak.
Now I understand where you wrote, though I walked through the valley
of the shadow of death, and that my testimony, because I went through the valley of the shadow of death. My baby came out, she was weak. They had to take her to ICU with oxygen, you know, and all. Now, postmortem hemorrhage is one of the leading killers of women during childbirth. I was in a hospital where they could get more blood to transfuse into my body. How many Nigerian women, how many, one in Yafunke in the village, one in Mama will be in, how could have gone through postmortem hemorrhage and there's no blood bank in that hospital to transfuse blood? Normally when you're going into the theater, they keep 1 pint of blood for emergency. Now, they had finished the 1 pint. I was still bleeding. They had to send my husband to the blood bank to get 2 more pints.
Oh, wow.
Now, think about it. You see, we need to prioritize women's health in Nigeria. We need to prioritize women and children's hospital in Nigeria. Because I was, when I came out and I was getting myself back, and I was asking myself, not just because of me, how many thousands of women, how many hospitals have functional blood bank? I now asked myself, if there was no blood bank there, they would have started go to Wuse, go to here, go to there, go and look for blood. And that could mean the end of your life. You know, so that is part of my story. I can't tell it all. But you know what? I am grateful. When I came out, I still had post-eclampsia. My blood pressure was still rising, you know, until after about 6 weeks, it now normalized. So I had to be placed on 2 high blood pressure medicine, you know, and all. How many women can afford that? How many? I was taking a particular drug that goes for about 3,000 naira and it finishes in 2 days.
So
one of it.
After 2 days, you have to buy another 3,000.
I have to buy it again.
Wow.
And poverty level in Nigeria, it has been said that Nigeria, a lot of Nigerians are living below $1 per day. $1 is about 600 and maybe a fraction naira. Now, a woman who is living on 600 and something naira a day, and she has post-eclampsia or pre-eclampsia, will she be able to buy some of those drugs? It's I came out and I felt sad, not just because of myself. I'm grateful that I'm alive, but I'm thinking of a lot of women below the poverty line who can't even afford this. Is this how they just go because they happen to be in Nigeria? Because they are bringing forth life? And mind you, giving birth is a national service. Because if we all refuse to give birth, the government will begin to look for ways to have, you know, population, replenish young population. So that you give birth or that you have to go through that process, you're undergoing a national service. So my story, I'm really grateful to God. But again, in retrospect, I think about millions of other women.
I can imagine. All right, now let's get a little bit more up close and personal. We know that you talked about that you fell pregnant after almost 10 years of your supposedly last born. And then we also know that recently you joined those in the 4th floor. That you became 40. And so, then now looking at the age, now you talked about the age being a factor.
Yeah, it is.
Now a lot of people that would just become assistant God or PA Jesus and then tell you that at certain age you can never give birth again. But then it's a different thing for you. So how was your body able to welcome all of the changes that happened? Because now you have people like that who will tell you that it's not possible to have such happen.
No, but women still give birth. You know, I've seen women who give birth in their 50s, you know, and all. But again, it's risky. Because when I went for antenatal, the first day, in fact, they just started with all the risk factor. Madam, you're 42 years. You've had 3 previous years. And then my 3rd child, I had slight preeclampsia. You had preeclampsia, which disappeared, but I'm not hypertensive naturally. But again, you see, at that age, a lot of women too are hypertensive. And also the risk factor is high. But that doesn't mean, because we are not God. A woman could have married late, maybe she even married early, she couldn't have a baby and all. But it again boils down to the kind of healthcare we have in Nigeria. Women have post-eclampsia, pre-eclampsia all over the world, and they are managed for these conditions. And they are managed well. And they have their baby, healthy. They are also healthy. For me, accommodate the changes in the body, yes, there must be change, even if you're young. But naturally, I'm a hyper person. But you see this one, I was nowhere to be found in the radar.
This one actually humbled you, I guess. I
disappeared from social media. In fact, I had people sending me messages, asking me, Irene, are you okay? Because it was so bad that I wouldn't completely, if you had called me to come on air, I wouldn't come. Because I had to be monitoring my blood pressure, sending WhatsApp message to the consultants every morning and every night. And anytime I felt some kind of headache, I had to do that. And then with the a bit of high GDM, and I kept having this, what's it called, constipation as well. I've never had such constipation before. Everything they gave me was just not working. So with all of that, they said age contributed. Yes, I agree. But that doesn't mean that women can still have babies, because you don't know, everybody has their own story. Some didn't marry at 20-something, like some of us. Some will still marry at 40, and they will desire to have their children. But I only beseech them to go have proper health care, and be responsible for your health. I go on Google, I read things, but not for self-medication. And then again, we have a problem with health practitioners in Nigeria. The day I brought my result, I snapped it and sent, and then the doctor, I was waiting for her to tell me, you are my doctor, for God's sake. Tell me this is what I have. And then you see this thing of doctors shroud things in secrecy. Just took my this thing and wrote proper. I know they all have bad handwriting. Very bad. You can't even read what they are writing. And then I'm asking her, I said, doctor, what was the result of the test? I paid for it. Exactly. And then she was angry. She was almost getting angry that I was asking. Even when you have a right to know what the result is. I am telling women, you have a right to know. I see women take their children to the hospital, and I ask, so what did the doctor say? They say, the doctor wrote something to them. No, you have a right to know what is wrong with you. It's your body. At the end of the day, you're the one that will swallow that medicine. You're the one that will take that injection. Why shouldn't you ask a doctor to know what is wrong with you? And then I know they get angry. And even when they get angry with me, I say, doctor, please be calming down. No. Because it is my life we're talking about here. So it was there she now said, okay, GDM, that your GDM is high. And like, what does it mean? Break it in layman terms. I did not study medicine. I studied something else. So break it and say, okay, it means that your sugar level is elevated, kind of. You might need to go and see, is it an endocrinologist or something? But you were not willing to tell me. So how would you have known if she didn't tell you at the end of the day? I don't know. So and then you see a lot of women. I had people even in the same so-called VIP section we're in who did not even know what they were going through. And they'll tell you, okay, they say, I said no. I said, go and ask the doctor, go back and ask. Because you can't be taking treatment of what you don't know. And then even to help yourself. Now, I know I have some slightly elevated sugar. I know I need to cut down on certain things I eat. I need to stay away from probably what I love watermelon. But watermelon has lots of sugar. So naturally on my own, I started Googling the foods I should stay off. Okay. And that's why I come again. You are responsible for your health. Nobody. So I Googled again. So I stayed off watermelon. I stayed off some of those things that had. But you need to know what is wrong with you first. And I see women carry babies and they go to they say, the doctor said, maybe. I said, so why did you go to the hospital first? If you don't even know what is wrong with the child, you could have as well sat at home now. So you go to the hospital, you should know what is wrong with the child and then discuss with the doctor. And this is calling on health practitioners, healthcare. Don't shut people down. I know they're under pressure. That's another gamut of whatever. They are under pressure. Lots of cases, lots of people before them. And Sometimes
they now talk about the
pay.
massive exodus of brain drain.
Oh, that's another thing. And I don't blame them in any way.
Is that actually the reason why you have them in short supply in some of the healthcare?
Yes, like the hospital I use, I kept asking them, they tell me, oh, that doctor has gone to UK, has gone to Saudi, has gone to, you know, and all. Again, you don't blame people for seeking greener pastures, but they should employ more hands and remunerate them well. I was just listening to one program yesterday, and they said hazard allowance for doctors is 5,000.
5,000.
5,000. I counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,000 hazard allowance. Hazard, you know. So why would that doctor not want to seek for greener pastures? If the doctor was your brother, will you not encourage him or her? You know. So it's also part of it.
Okay.
So we need to prioritize healthcare. The threshold in budgeting for healthcare globally, the acceptable threshold is 15% of the budget. Last year, government did 7%. I don't even know what this year, because with my condition, I didn't even look at all those their things. So when you are doing 7% of your budget for healthcare, I don't know the kind of healthcare service you want to get. And I was hoping that with COVID, you know, COVID exposing the weakness of our health institution, that there was going to be some kind of upping the game. Yes, that, oh, COVID actually exposed us. We're not praying for another pandemic, but in the absence of a pandemic, that is when you should even prepare very well.
Okay, so now you talked about with the disruptions caused by COVID, we should have, at least that should have helped us to up our games. But then we've had women who have been governors, who have been one thing or the other. So is it that they have not been advocating much to ensure that the healthcare delivery service is at least at par with what we have in the advanced countries?
Annabel, we've not really had women in the very critical leadership positions.
But we have women as Ministry of Women Affairs, we have them with the humanitarian disaster management and all. But
now look at the ratio of men to women in those things. Now let's take for instance the Senate. I think we have just about 6 women in the Senate, and there are 109 senators. 6 minus 109, so the men are 103. Now even healthcare goes beyond just having women.
Exactly.
It goes beyond having women.
Because you have a wife.
You have a wife, and then you see every woman in every society like this. So I think there used to be a jingle that says "Healthy women, healthy society." Now, when your wife or the woman in the house is healthy, it translates to everything in the house. When she's ill, the same thing. When I was in the hospital, you know, because I had to do extended stay in the hospital, I mean, my children, my husband will be, by the time he comes to the hospital to bring food, he's looking scattered. Then my daughters were looking their own scattered, and they will tell you that they were looking for one thing and all. And that is when it boils down, it tells you that the importance of women
of a woman
in the home. And because of that, we must prioritize women's health and children. A woman, see, World Health says that women, that healthcare, you know, is accessibility to healthcare is a factor of gender too. Because just being born a woman, you must bleed every month. At some point in your life, you get pregnant. At some point in your life, you're exposed to, because of, you have menopause, you stop bleeding, which is another. So you find out that women need more healthcare services than men. I know men will come and say, don't we get sick? Don't we? But women need it more. Then who are the people who are the primary caregivers of children when they are ill? Even when they are not ill, it's still the woman who goes more often to the hospital. So whether we have men or women, the men need to also prioritize it, because irrespective of the fact that we don't have enough women in leadership, men need to prioritize the healthcare. And of course, we need to also push in and make efforts for more women to be in position. Imagine if tomorrow I made something. I mean, with the experience I've gone through, no woman should go through that experience. None.
All right, now still talking about the age factor. They used to say that life begins at 40.
Yeah.
So when it comes to child delivery, childbirth, is that a myth, or it is another kettle of fish entirely?
For delivery, actually, from the research and even from my own experience, I had my first child when I was, I think, 25.
Okay.
Yeah, and I had him through CS2 because he was big. By the time I was going for, he was 4.5 when he was born. He was really large. But I never heard anything about GDM, pre-eclampsia, post-eclampsia, protein in the urine, nothing. In fact, I kept going to work. I had my son on a Thursday. I was in the office on a Wednesday. Yes, and I was going to have him on Thursday. I got into labor, but because he was big, I said, so when I look at that time, then I had my daughter when I was 28 plus. I didn't have any of my first daughter. But by the time I had my third child, I was, I think, 32. I was beginning to have, at 32, and I had a bit of high blood pressure when I was pregnant of her. Then this one that is 42, I had all the cocktail of issues. So, but again, that would not say that every 40 years old woman or 50 will have that. But age is actually a factor. And I discovered that doctors, when women have gotten to a certain age as well, they don't, they just book them for surgery, for CS.
Now let's talk about that CS part. Before we go on this break, we actually due for a break, but before we go on that break, let's talk about CS. Now, a lot of people, they've tagged religion or tradition to having the normal natural birth or going through a cesarean session. Now, some people will say that when they went to church, they were told that you're a Hebrew woman, you must deliver like the Hebrew women, you must push your baby. And then some people will say traditionally, women will tell you that if a woman who goes through CS is a lazy woman, someone that cannot push her own baby. Are all of those true or a myth?
When they say Hebrew women, I tell them I'm a Nigerian woman. I'm not Hebrew. But again, let me tell you my first experience when I was to have my son. I wanted to have him normal, that's vaginal delivery, and I was on labor, and the doctor at some point said, she has to go for CS. I said no, and I wanted to have the baby, you know. And of course, reason, I borrowed sense, you know. My husband said no, you can't die having a baby, you know. My mom was there, so I had I had the CS. And within 20 minutes, they brought out this child. And I'm like, so what was I laboring for since 7 a.m.? Because I got to the hospital, I still remember, 7 a.m. or 7:02 a.m. that day. So, and I was there till 3 p.m. I was asking myself, so if this was this easy, why was I going
through this? So is it easier to do the CS than go through the vaginal birth?
CS is 20 minutes if all things being equal. Yeah. But I'm not advocating for CS or vaginal. What I'm just saying is, if you are supposed to go for CS, they have checked you. Probably your baby is breached, or the baby was too big, or you have health conditions that will not warrant you going through that stress of pushing and enduring labor pains, and they have asked you to go for CS. Please do. And I hear all kinds of things. We need to empower. You see, I tell people, because you know I'm a girl child advocate. And, you know, and women empowerment thing. I would say we need to empower women economically to be able to take decisions. Annabel, we need to empower women first, mentally. Mental empowerment is higher than economic empowerment. The other day, while I was in the hospital, and I was able to now go through Facebook, and I saw a lady, supposedly woke lady, like you people, very, you know, your age bracket, woke.
The Gen Zs.
And she died. And I was reading the story. I felt if I was there, I would have just taken cane and flogged the dead body too. You know, that the husband said she shouldn't go to hospital. The story was one kind. She shouldn't go to hospital. They were taking the delivery maybe at home or something. And this girl gave up, and eventually the baby died. See, it's not about being woke. We have a lot of woke girls who are not mentally empowered. I was to sign, when it was time to sign for my C, I told the girl, bring the thing, let me sign. She was like, okay. I was to do a procedure, tubal litigation, and she said, have you discussed with your husband? I said, discuss. I said, can I have the form? It's my, I'm not saying don't discuss things with you, discuss. But when it comes down to, we just know that it's your life. I have heard stories where they said the husband said the wife should not do CS. And the woman went into labor and maybe died, or the baby died. I haven't heard of one who's a medical doctor, that the husband is a pastor and doesn't believe that women should go give birth through CS. And as I'm telling you, that woman is in the grave and the baby died too. Mental empowerment, women must be mentally empowered. That medical doctor has money, economic empowerment, but mentally she's not empowered. We have to raise our girls to have mental empowerment, to think of themselves beyond what people are telling them. So your husband says you should not go to register for antenatal, and you are home, and you're pregnant, and then it's time to deliver. Your husband says no, he doesn't want CS, and they are saying your pelvic is small. You say no, my husband is already praying for me that I will have the baby, like the Hebrew women, and you die. So mental empowerment supersedes economic empowerment. I know it's good for women to be economically empowered, but they must be mentally empowered to be able to take decision for
themselves. Clearly, there's more that we can learn from this conversation. Let's go on this quick break, and when we return, we will unpack so many things with our guest, Irene Uba. I'll see you later. Don't move a muscle. Health caregivers, the kind of treatment they go through. Some of them will tell you they were physically abused. Some of them will tell you they were slapped, they were pinched, they were beaten, or they were restrained through to getting a bed. In fact, some of them will even tell you they had to even give birth on the floor and all of that. You just begin to hear so many stories that the nurses did to some pregnant women. Did you actually go through all that, and why do they do that?
A woman comes, maybe she had a baby last year, she's here, and I say, customer, you don't come, eh? What is that? You're shaming the woman. I've heard stories where they say, oh, you are shouting there when you were doing it. Were you not laughing? Is that part of the job description they gave you as a nurse or a caregiver?
If you just joined us, this is The Conversation. We are reaching you from Kaftan's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. If you just joined us, you missed quite a lot, but then you can still join in the conversation. So our guest on the show today is Irene Uba. She is a gender equality expert. All right, before we went on that break, we're talking about empowering women mentally first, before the financial or the economic empowerment. Now, you talk about someone who probably some people who did not give birth in the hospital. Now, let's talk about the traditional delivery women, or midwives, like they call them, or the unskilled delivery attendants, where some people will just say that, no, we just give birth, maybe especially from the suburbs, where they say we don't go to the hospital. They have a traditional woman who gives birth to all our children. So is that actually should we advocate for people like that? Because they would also tell you, those traditional midwives, they will tell you that they will start counting millions or thousands of children that they have given birth to, and then nothing happened to them.
No, see, we need to separate it. In the rural areas or in the communities, you have skilled birth attendants, whom had gone through training and so on, and I think they have some form of
union.
Yes, so they are skilled. They are maybe due to lack of healthcare, accessibility to healthcare, So, and I know there are some even NGOs who train, who give them both delivery kits and so on. So those ones are different. Now, the ones that just go to people's house, they will just carry themselves, even in this Abuja, and go to somebody that they say she
has been giving birth to children for years.
Like their church person, and the person would see. I can't understand it, because a skilled birth attendant has gone through some rigorous training. Sometimes, if the baby is breached, or the baby wants to, there's a way they adjust baby, and if it's beyond them already, because they also have contacts, they already know, okay, you call this person or move this person to, But you see, for me personally, I would always advocate. See, Annabel, the worst thing that has happened to healthcare in Nigeria is the collapse or near collapse of primary healthcare. Because with primary healthcare, do we need all that? Primary healthcare is supposed to be in every community, within walking distances in those communities. And they are supposed to be functional. And what is the duty of primary health care? A woman is pregnant, she goes there, she doesn't need to take transport, she registers for antenatal, maybe with 15 naira or free, and then you have birth attendants in the hospital. And then when it's beyond it, like they don't have scan. And you see, again, the primary health cares are not equipped. And you see, that's where they have also problem, because they tell them, okay, go to so general hospital and do scan. Maybe the woman has tried, with experience, felt that the baby is not either developing well or something. So, okay, go and do a fetal scan. And the woman disappears.
Ah.
Yes. She disappears because she knows that she has to take transport from that village or that community to general hospital that is in town. She doesn't have the transport.
She has to buy a card.
She has to buy a card. Then she has to pay for the scan, maybe 4,000 or 5,000 naira. And she doesn't have it. And sometimes some of them may even have it. They don't prioritize their own health too. She'll say, what is there? And when she born the first one, she do scan, forgetting that every baby is different. And comes with their own whatever, the way they have decided to come, and so on. And then she forgets that when she had that her son was 3 years ago, 3 years has been added to her age. And apart from the 3 years being added to her age, she has been most likely exposed to more stress, more, all kinds of things, more pressure, both financial and economic pressure, that could trigger her blood pressure, as opposed to when she just got married and she didn't really have that much pressure. So she forgets all of this, and then she might not go. So it might be poverty. Poverty is a factor. Education is another factor. And that's why I go back to girl-child education again. When girls are not educated, these are the kind of decisions they take.
Now let's talk about complications during pregnancy or childbirth. What exactly are these complications that women could actually face? Like
for me, I had postpartum hemorrhage, which happened as the baby was as I was being sectioned. It was an emergency. It was something that could have led to death. There are other complications. Some could be, there was a lady, that was brought in while I was recovering, and I was in the recovery theater, that's what they call it. And I remember that midnight, this lady was, they were just saying emergency. And the doctors, God bless doctors. True. This was 3 a.m. I was actually in pains because I just was a few hours after my surgery. And the ones on night duty, and if you see, within 3 minutes or 5 minutes, these people were already in their green, rushing to the theater.
Oh, wow.
Now, eventually, that woman was brought to my ward. And when she told me her story, she was pregnant for twins. She's been coming for antenatal, and they said she would deliver normal, she will have a normal delivery because she's had history of delivering normally, and she was just okay, and she's young.
Okay.
And all they look at certain factors.
Okay.
And she's had 2 babies or 3 before and all. So, but why she got into labor in the night and they brought her to the hospital, she was able to birth the boy. Then the girl was to come out. No, the girl was to come out. The girl turned and put out her hand.
Whoa.
So, while she had the boy and they were just to take delivery of the girl, she turned and pushed out her hand.
Wow.
Of course, you can't birth a baby in that position.
Definitely.
So they had to take her to the theater.
Wow.
Immediately. And that was how so that's a complication. It was never planned for.
And they never see such during the scan and all?
Because her baby was normal, the positions were normal. Because if they were breached they could have, told her that she will have a CSE, from the beginning. But the baby was normal, her blood pressure was normal, her protein, everything. So that complication happened while trying to deliver. And there are other complications like that. There are some where some women have the baby and the placenta wouldn't come out. So again, that's a complication that you never planned for. So there are different kinds of complication that could arise.
All right, now we know that over time we've seen Nigerian women, they will just prefer to travel abroad to give birth to their children, and then most of them will complain about is because of the healthcare delivery that we have in Nigeria. So what exactly can be done to better the lot of this public healthcare delivery, either public or private, whichever one?
Please, if you have the money, go and deliver. True. Because life is so important. And I want to tell women, see, your life is so important that if it just goes, I always say it, your children can never have a mother again. Your husband may have a wife again, he could remarry, but your children will never have a mother again. So you need to be prioritized. So if you have the money, go, if you can afford it. But for those of us who are here, of course, I'm not going through that route again, but for the women who are here who can't even afford it, Google. Try, because, yes, I'm going to talk to government, but your own self, try and begin to do research. What do I not need to take? Because sometimes they don't tell you all of these things. How do I stop my not to have high blood pressure? Then for government, we can't say it enough. How do we prioritize healthcare for women? How do we make sure that women accessibility and affordability? Because it's one thing to have an accessible healthcare, it's another thing to be able to afford it. So we're looking at both accessibility and affordability. And of course, not compromising quality.
Okay. Now,
Nigeria doesn't have national coverage, healthcare coverage. When NHIS came, everybody was happy. But now NHIS focus more on the civil servants. And how many are civil servants compared to the population of Nigeria? Of course, they now have private HMOs that now came up for, But you see, even at that, the education is so low. I don't know if my auntie in the village knows what is an HMO. Talk more of going to register. And maybe small something is being taken away from our little money.
Salary.
So the awareness of health management organizations should increase. Then, government needs to also prioritize the needs of the health workers. I was supposed to be given a wrong injection because the nurse on duty, she was tired. She didn't know what she was doing.
Oh.
She was tired. She had gone throughout the night. And then I told her, I said, please check it again. I can't even tell you. I said, check it again. Because I'm that curious. Yeah. If you come to my bed, you bring the injection, I tell you, is that gentamicin, Buscopan or what? You think I studied. In fact, the doctor had to tell me, madam, you are using our terminology. Did you study anything medicine?
Because you had to research.
I said, far from it, I'm an educator. I did not do anything medicine. But you see this, my health. I had to do a lot of research. She said, oh, really? So, and she had to look at it again. So they need to pay them. They need to be compensated properly, remunerated properly for their effort and their time.
All right.
And the private sector is not even better off.
Oh.
It's not. Except for if you elicit high up there where you pay 7-8 figures to go for treatments. That's where you'll be talking of. You say, okay, maybe that personalized healthcare. So government needs to increase the funding for healthcare. Government needs to remove corruption from healthcare. And then remunerate them well. And then equip. And we should go back to why did primary healthcare, why are they dead? Why is there no primary healthcare anymore? The buildings are there, rat infested.
Quite a lot of things to talk about, to unbundle from this conversation. Now let's talk about, you talked about how much your husband was able to help you with the pictures and the WhatsApp messages. Now let's talk about spousal support or participation, either from getting support from your spouse or whoever that you may be getting support from. How important is it, especially from those who are actually married and then they have their spouse with them? Because I've heard some men will tell you that we are pregnant together. It is our pregnancy.
Yes,
and then on the flip side, you have some men who will tell you that I've done the job of putting the baby there. So do the job of pushing and whatever. So what is the importance of getting spousal participation or support?
Pregnancy is a secondary matter because your spousal support is not just when you're pregnant. Marry right. That is the first thing. Marry right and marry well. Marry a kind person, whether a man or a woman. But since we're talking about women here, women should marry kind men. Because I see pregnancy is a whole lot. And then when the support is not there. So my husband says we went to have the baby. That's how I say, okay, we're pregnant. In fact, they used to call him where we go and get drugs. They say, oh, assistant pregnant. You say, oh, we're having the baby together. And even when I say, oh, when I went to have the baby, say, how can you say where you were when we went to have the baby?
Interesting.
You know, but marry, right? And then if you're already in the situation, because sometimes some women are already in that situation, please get people who will support you.
Okay.
If he's not supporting you. Because you cannot have double tragedy. He's not supporting you. You are there killing yourself. You are still increasing your chances of getting high blood pressure because of lack of support from him. You know, so have your own struggle. And that's why I tell women, also have your own circle of people. When I was going through this, I had people that at some point I needed money. I said, oh, please send me, and within 5 minutes I get an alert. Someone is sending me money. And that's why I'm telling you that mental empowerment is more important than economic empowerment. Because a woman can be not economically empowered, but mentally empowered. And then with that mental empowerment, she knows what to do.
Okay.
She knows where to say yes or no. So even when your spouse is not supporting you, because you're mentally empowered, you glide above his lack of support. Because you cannot be shouting, honey, why are you not supporting me? Honey, why are you not asking? And then you're still jeopardizing your own health. So mentally, you glide above his insensitivity. And that's why every woman must have their friends. Your husband friend must not be your friend. Have your friend, have your own circle of people too. That should, in case he decides to act anyhow, you have people who are supporting you. Have people who are there. I saw some women whom it was their friends that brought them to the hospital. The day I was trying to get into admission, it was their friends that brought them to the hospital, was there checking them in, taking their things, and so maybe the husband traveled, maybe he wasn't around, or maybe he's an absentee one, or maybe they're even single mothers. But I was so happy. I was so impressed. Circle of girls carry their box. You know, this one was already getting the meal and all. So have your friends, but you cannot undermine the role of support, whether it's from your spouse or from friends. But you need critical support at that point, because at some point you can't even help yourself.
All right, now let's talk about some of the ill treatment that women go through, especially with this health caregivers, the kind of treatment they go through. Some of them will tell you they were physically abused. Some of them will tell you they were slapped, they were pinched, they were beaten, or they were restrained through to getting a bed. Or, in fact, some of them will even tell you they had to even give birth on the floor and all of that. You just begin to hear so many stories that the nurses did to some pregnant women. Did you actually go through all that, and why do they do that?
Okay, now I think like I said, healthcare providers, healthcare practitioners, they should be, I've said they need help from government, right? But again, they also need to help themselves. Sometimes they are not humane. Sometimes the way they speak, sometimes the way, you know, how do I call it now? A woman comes, maybe she had a baby last year, she's here, and I say, customer, you don't come, eh? What is that? You're shaming the woman. Then, and from that moment, the woman she builds a kind of wall, because she also wants, she wants to preserve her own mental health. Then you see the ones that say, I've heard stories where they say, oh, you are shouting there when you were doing it. Were you not laughing? Is that part of the job description they gave you as a nurse or a caregiver? Now you also have, and then again, there's this point, Annabel, there's this, do I call it a disconnect between departments in hospitals? Now, when I had my baby, I had post-eclampsia. Okay. And post-eclampsia means that my blood pressure was still very high, and I wasn't allowed to move around. Okay. At some point, my blood pressure was 183. In fact, they literally were to chain me to the bed. Oh, wow. Now, my baby was in the ICU, so I couldn't go and see her. I didn't see my baby for almost 5 days after delivery. Yes, I only saw her when they brought her out and they showed me and they rushed her out. Now, my mom was the person going, my husband and all. Okay. And so the day my blood pressure had come down a bit, about 160. I was told to go and see my baby. So I managed and got there. And what this nurse will greet me with, the person who was in the ICU, finally you have come. And I lost it.
I can imagine.
I lost it completely. I gave it to her like somebody in Mushi. I gave.
And for those who does not know where Mushi is in Lagos.
It's a suburb
of Lagos.
I gave it to her. Because
I can imagine.
I was like, is there a way that a woman will go through 9 months of birthing, of carrying a baby, and then go through CS and had postpartum hemorrhage, and will not want to see her own child? When I wasn't okay, of course, there's something called the postpartum depression, which is also a sickness on its own, and you should be empathizing with the woman. Now, but mine was not postpartum hemorrhage. Mine was not postpartum depression. Mine was post-eclampsia. And then I couldn't even do anything. All I knew was they would give me some drugs that my body goes hot all of a sudden so that I could be passing out urine. And then I managed to come up there. You're telling me finally you have come. By the time I was done with her, I told her, madam, I was fighting for my life. I have to be alive to take care of this baby. And then when I came, she told me come back in 2 hours time to breastfeed. And I couldn't make it in 2 hours time, because at that point they had given me another injection that was to make me sleep because of. So I now came back, and meanwhile they start giving the baby formula, so I came in after about 4 or 5 hours, and she told me, she said, so this is the time you're coming, another one. And I told her, I said, I have to be alive to take care of this baby. I am fighting for my own life. She's fighting for her life as well. But I'm fighting for mine. And if I don't fight for mine and I give up, there'll be no mother to take care of her. And that was how she kept quiet. So there's this disconnect. You have people in the ICU, in the neonatal, doing everything that they're in the interest of the child, not the interest of the mother. Then you have the ones that are in the interest of the mother and they're not even bothered about that of the child. So there's a disconnect.
All right.
So we need to, there's so many lapses in the healthcare. So many lapses. You have the ones who feel that this job, they are managing it.
And then they just bring it all on you.
On you. And even when I had to tell one nurse, and my mom said, no, I shouldn't have. I said, no, if you're tired of the job, resign. I just had to tell her. Because I saw the way she was just so angry. You're trying to take blood pressure, and when you're taking blood pressure, even the machine, they write the instruction. The person is supposed to be seated somehow, and you who is taking the blood pressure, you're just put the thing, you get a deranged reading or a different reading. And then you're there talking, and when you get the wrong reading and you write it there, the doctor looks at it, that will inform what medication they will place you on. And I was like, you don't put that. I said, please, if you're tired, resign.
A lot of Nigerian men have different tales to tell with regards to the nurses and then caregivers in hospitals. If we have to start on that one, that's like another discussion entirely. I think
government should enumerate them well, and they need to improve
on themselves. And
then love the job. My husband says that every other profession, you can do it and not love it. But medicine must be a profession that you must love. All right. Because you just have to. These are lives. You could one slip of 1 minute, 2 minutes, that person could be gone for life. So it's a profession that you must love.
All right, even as we begin to round up, we'd like to get your last words to women or couples who are actually waiting on God. They've been praying and crying, and then some will tell them that at this age, at XYZ age, you cannot give birth again. But then we've seen that there's still, God can do anything at any age at all. So we'd like to get soothing words to this kind of families or women who are going through this and are watching us right now, that not impossible is nothing.
Impossible is really nothing. For people who are waiting, I heard a story of, I think 21 years, they now had a baby. After 22 years, just dedicated their baby recently.
Oh, wow.
So impossible is nothing. But while also waiting, they could explore other routes. I know in Africa, here in Nigeria, we don't like to talk about adoption, surrogacy, IVF. There are other channels. Like my pastor preached a message some years ago. She said, why are you against adoption? After all, Jesus adopted us. I will not adopted. So why are you against it? And truly, while you're waiting, it could just be that adoption that could even open for you. Because we have seen where a woman, where a couple adopted, and less than a year after, she took in. She became more relaxed. You know, so but in any case, I tell people that there are lots of children out there. You know, while you're waiting, nothing stops you from trying, even going. Do you know there are some people that while they are waiting, they don't even bother checking themselves to really know. Then you have people who have secondary infertility. The primary infertility is that you've not had at all. Secondary infertility, you have one and you have not been able to have another. And then you're waiting and all. And you know, some of them, they don't bother. They'll tell you no, that since they were able to have the first one, why would they be able to have another one? There are so many tests, there are so many treatments. And couples should be united in it, because I've seen where the woman is willing to go for treatment, but the husband is not. Saying that he knows that in his family, that they don't waste time in having
They're okay in their
they're
families.
okay. That his father, how many children, they had to beg him to stop scoring goal. So he knows, you know, so there are things like that. So, but couples should be united.
Okay.
When you're going for, and whatever you're going, and let me address the women more, because it's a woman that feels, especially with stigma, you know, in this part of our world, you know, and all. So women go to different places. Please, avoid cryptic pregnancies. Avoid places where they tell you that will make you pregnant and this is the only place you're going to have the baby. Then you know you have been scammed. That's wrong. It's not right.
All right.
You know, and then avoid places where they are telling you, but just if you believe you're going to have, pray to God, believe, and if he needs you going to the hospital to do alternative IVF or surrogacy, or go for, be open-minded, discuss with your partner.
It's been a wonderful time having this conversation with you, Irene Ubah. Thank you so much for your time with us, and thank you for sharing your story.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
All right, viewers, I'm sure you must have been enlightened, educated, and at the same time entertained. We've been chatting with Irene Ubah. She is a gender equality expert, and it's been a wonderful time. I'm sure you must have learned from every story that she gave here on the show. I'll definitely see you again next time. From the nation's capital, Abuja, I am Annabel Orji. God bless Nigeria.